Hello, welcome to Oxford History Today. I'm your host, Ron Brock, and today we'll be looking at the children's room here in the museum. When we reorganized the museum, we broke it up into different rooms and tried to let the rooms depict what it would look like back around the turn of the century, late 1800s, early 1900s. And today our guest will be Mr. Darryl Lambertson, a longtime member of the Historical Society and a former member of our board. Let's welcome Darryl. Hi, Darryl.
Ron?
Good to see you this afternoon. Welcome to the show.
Pleasure to be here.
I thought today that we'd go over and we'd take a look at the children's room here in the museum and just go through and explore some of the artifacts.
Okay.
So let's head on over there and we'll have a look.
Sounds like fun.
Here we are, Darryl. We've got quite a few things to talk about here. Back here on this back wall, we've got a couple of pictures here, a boy and a girl, and we have one up here. If you would take a good close look at how they're dressed, that kind of gives you an indication of the time period that these pictures were taken. The boy's got some high-top shoes on, as does the little girl, and I would suppose that they're probably high-button shoes, and we have an example of those here. We'll get them out in a little bit. But these pictures would look pretty much like the children were dressed, again, back at the turn of the century. These would be definitely their Sunday best clothes. You know, the children of the time didn't really have a lot of clothes. They may have had one, two, maybe three outfits. You know, one to go to school in, one to play in, and one to go to church or wedding, something like that, and that were a little bit better. But I just wanted to point these pictures out in the beautiful frames, the gilded frames.
I have to wonder, the pictures are colored. I wonder if those were painted, touched up later? Or?
They may have been, yeah, they may have been, because as we know, the photography at that time was all black and white or sepia tone. So they probably were. They probably were. In front of us here, we've got a nice cradle. And this is circa, again, about the 1900s. Rocked back and forth real well, and they would have put the babies in there, and probably Dad would have pushed the thing with his toe at night when he was trying to get the kids to go to sleep, you know. And that's pretty much the way they are. And again, back then, everything was made out of real wood. We didn't have the particle board and cardboard furniture that we see so much of today. And it's kind of unique in the way that it rocks. Over here, we've got a few things up here on this shelf. A baby buggy. We got a doll high chair. Another baby buggy. Up here on the top shelf, we've got a rocking chair, another baby buggy, another cradle. A lot of these items here were donated to us by Mildred Schmidt, too, if you'll remember. These were her toys when she was a child. And they go back again to the same time frame, late 1800s. Actually, all these would be the early 1900s. Behind us here, if you want to step over on this side, Darryl, we can get a better look at these. We've got quite an extensive doll collection, and these were donated to us by Miss Dolly Best. Now, she was a retired school teacher from the Oxford schools, and when she retired, she traveled all around the world. In all the countries that she traveled to, she collected a doll. So you can see she went to many, many places. And we were just so fortunate that her daughter gave them to the museum for us to display. There's so many different styles of dolls here. I see a cornhouse doll here, which was pretty much made back on the farms and stuff like that. People didn't have a whole lot of money, and a lot of times the children's toys were something that their parents made. And again, there's just so many dolls here from so many different countries. I wouldn't even want to begin to start naming them all. It just takes some time to go through and really get a good idea of what's here.
It looks like she's got the world pretty much included here.
Boy, isn't it though? I mean, there's everything here. Japan and Poland, Hong Kong, Austria, Cambodia. I mean, just everywhere. Yeah, she did a lot of traveling. That's really something. Let's look at a few more things here. We've got a small desk and desk chair that I think are really, really cool. sort of like a slate top here on top. Opened up for the kids to put their crayons or whatever inside, pencils and paper. And the small drawers down here kind of looks like the drawers on the sewing machine too. And it's just, well, it's heavy, you know, again, we're talking about real wood furniture. We've got an office chair, which is really kind of cool.
Well, this is really neat. It has the swivel on it. It has everything, just like a big one.
Just like the big one, yes.
In miniature.
In miniature, yeah. I bet you the kids really had a ball with that.
Oh, yeah.
And let's see, this bear, the golden teddy bear, and again, that's circa 1912. And it was given to us by, again, Mildred Schmidt at age 4. She received that for Christmas. And so that's got to be getting pretty close to 100 years old. Of course, Mildred died a few years back. But then, yeah, that was one of her toys. And there's a toy phonograph up here. That's kind of cool, too. We talked about those last week. Then I think the other things that we should look at are over by the Lone Ranger case. We'll have to take a look at those. Look at this little sideboard that they had. Again, a lot of these toys were made as a toy, and some of these were made as salesman samples. And I'm not really sure how you tell the difference, but they're pretty much the same. And then the children's dishes, of course, that were painted, and I'm sure today they could nowhere be on a children's playhouse because they're probably painted with lead paint. And I think when we come back, we'll be looking at some more toys here. Yeah, Darryl, we were talking about this little sideboard. It's kind of interesting in the way it's made. We've got some more toys inside of here. Little rolling pin.
Oh, yeah. Couple dishes.
Couple dishes. Looks like a little teapot or coffee pot, something like that. And again, it's again all wood. Dovetail drawers, that's a good indication of the age.
No plastic?
No plastic, no plastic. Pretty cool, really cool, I like it. Here we got a little composition doll. These things are kind of hard to find that are in really good condition because the material that they're made of kind of decomposes. You can see some of the toes here are riding off, a little pinky finger here, and she has eyes that open and close. So the little girls had a lot of fun with these dolls. There were strings attached to the eyes back here, and that's what made them open and close. Yeah. It's kind of cool. You found something, if you'd like to show us.
Yes, I did. This is a baseball bat, I guess way back in this is circa 1890. And baseball was pretty important for the kids back then. And as far as we can tell, this is a homemade baseball bat. And there's some nails in there kind of holding it together. And I can imagine all the home runs that would have hit. If this is what they used for a baseball bat, I wonder what they used for a glove. Because I've caught a couple line drives, and I know without a glove, I know how it feels. So maybe
the hands,
we can come across a glove from this date, and we can put these two together and really give the people an idea of what early baseball was like.
Yeah, that and the ball itself.
Oh yeah.
You know, they weren't really the real hard ball that we have today, and it was even softer than a softball. It's something that people made, and that's a big thing. And the thing that I keep wanting to emphasize is people made their own objects. You know, they didn't go down to Kmart's and buy a new one or go down to Sports Authority. They made their own. And this bat right here was hand carved. It was whittled out of probably a branch, something like that, and it was made by hand.
If you could have bought it, it probably would have cost a whole $1 or $1.50.
If that,
that was
yeah.
a lot of money.
Well, sure.
That was a lot of money back then.
Yeah, and the gloves, if you've ever seen it, I don't have any here, I wish I did, but they were quite a bit different than the way they are today.
Pretty pitiful.
Pretty pitiful. You know, you had the fingers and the thumb, and you might have had 2 straps of leather coming across here to join your finger and your thumb, and that's all there was to it. It wasn't preformed like we have today, it was just a flat glove. And the catch with them was really a feat. I know my father had one from when he was a child, and I used to play with it, and I had better luck catching with my bare hands than I did with that silly glove because I could never get it to close, you know. Catcher's mitt was the same way. They were very thick, very wide, and it was just a big round pad pretty much for the ball to hit, and then you had to grab it with the other hand or you would never keep it. So that's pretty much the equipment they had to play with at that time when they were playing ball. Down here we had talked a little bit about the Lone Ranger a couple weeks ago, but there's some pretty interesting toys down there for children. First thing that comes to my mind is the cap gun. I can't think of many boys at all that didn't have a set of cap guns to play with. When I grew up, Saturday mornings, television, early television, was Westerns. You know, they had so many different programs then. You had, they had the Lone Ranger, of course. You had Roy Rogers, Gene Autry, the Cisco Kid, Hopalong Cassidy, Sky King. There's just a ton of Westerns. And I can definitely remember having my 6-gun strapped on, ready to help them guys out, chasing the bad guys.
I did too. I sat right in front of the TV and I had them all laid out in front of me.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing that they had to amuse themselves is the books. Like here's a Lone Ranger book, little Lone Ranger comic book. We've got some more books over here in the cabinet we'll look at again when we go over there. But again, it was things that kids had to do to amuse themselves. There was no TV, there was no radio, no iPods. They would read, play instruments like we had talked about, or sing. And just kind of amuse themselves with what free time they had. If we go back over here to our display area, we can take a look at a few things that are in the cabinet here.
Great.
Over in this cabinet, we've got some pretty interesting items here. And I think if we open the door up a little bit, we can take a few out. We've got a few items here, Darryl. Here are some early ice skates.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Look at those beauties.
I had a pair similar to that, and they would not stay on your feet because
Not very well.
I was out there with my 4-buckle Arctics, and you tried to strap those on. They would last for about 2 minutes. Then the straps would come off, and then you would end up on the ice. So eventually, you'd take them off and just say, "Heck with it," you know, let's slide on the ice.
Yeah, these were like the old roller skates. Remember, you had the skate key?
Oh yeah.
And that's how you tightened up the clamps on the side to hold them to your foot?
They were better than nothing, but
Barely.
yeah. Really.
Here we have a skater's lantern. This is a kerosene lantern. And when you were skating at night, you would carry that lantern. I don't know how much it would illuminate the area around you, but at least people could see that you were there.
Oh yeah.
And maybe that was the main reason for them, is so we didn't have skaters colliding with each other. That's
Not like our LED lanterns today where you can be seen 5 miles away.
No, that's for sure. They're kind of a cute little thing. They weren't
yeah.
very heavy,
Yeah.
so it would be easy to carry, of course. We had talked earlier, too, about the early roller skates, and we've got some here. We get one out to take a look at. And there we go.
Oh, yeah. I had a pair of those, too. And after about the 3rd time of going across the sidewalk, and I hit a crack in the sidewalk and skinned knees, that was the last time I used them.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's nothing there to really hold your shoe on.
No, you'd strap that around your ankle, but it seems to me there were clamps in the front, if I remember right. And it was the same thing. You had a skate key you could tighten them up with. These are so heavy. The metal wheels on them.
Mine were too, and they vibrated on the sidewalk. And if you did do any skating after a couple of minutes, you had to sit down because your legs were still shaking from the vibration. Yeah.
We've got a couple noisemakers down here. This would go real well on that desk, a little bell.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And a horn.
That's has a reed. Oh, yeah.
So again, it's children's toys. Another doll here. Now this is a little bit later doll. You can see that's kind of made out of some sort of plastic. It's not a composition doll. And then this is a very early doll head. This is a porcelain doll head. And
oh, how neat.
that would have been sewed onto a body.
To a body?
Cloth body that was stuffed with something. And these are very fragile. As you can see, she's kind of had her head cracked open here, but that happened to a lot of the dolls like that. I think we'll take a break now, and we'll take a look at some more things when we come back. And Darryl, we had mentioned before, when we had our ice skates on, we wore our 5-buckle Arctics. And there is a little pair of 5-buckle Arctics. Look at them guys.
As a kid, this is what we had, or you had leather high tops.
Right.
The only thing, leather high tops, once I got wet, your feet were wet and cold all day. At least with these rubber boots, you sounded like a walking riot or something with all the noises, bang, 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 they made scuffing, but at least your feet were dry at the end of the day.
Yeah, and if I kind of remember right, you weren't cool if you buckled them up.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
You had to be cool, they had to be unbuckled, make noise, catch on each other, and you'd fall on your nose.
Or if they were buckled, you pulled your pant leg or your cuffs over it so nobody could see it.
So you couldn't see that you buckled them up.
Yeah.
And if your mom made you do it before you went to school, the minute you got around the block, you unbuckled them. Yeah. We had talked too about high-top shoes and button shoes. And look at those for the kids to wear.
Can you imagine today, huh?
Yeah, trying to get the kids in them now, it's hard enough to get the Velcro straps fastened before they run off. But they had these tiny little buttons.
No Nikes for those guys.
Nope, that you had to button up. And they're just something else.
Oh, yeah. Really neat.
I kind of thought, too, while we were looking at children's things, we'd go down into the basement.
Great.
We've got a couple school things set up and some other things.
I noticed there's a book back there. Is that...
this guy?
That doesn't look like any kind of a book that we would have today.
No, this is Billy Whiskers.
Oh,
it's a very early book, and it's almost in shambles. It's really in sad shape, but it's a very early book, and it's something that
no glossy pictures or anything.
No, I kind of hate to even try and open it up, but yeah, it's a very early book, and it's like I say, it's completely falling apart. But it's a good example of what we had back then. Okay, let's go ahead and head on downstairs and see what we can find down there.
All right.
Here we are, Darryl, down in the basement.
Well, that looks like a school desk that I never had to sit at. That's before my time.
That's before my time also. They were all set one in front of each other. The child would sit in this seat, but his desk or writing surface would be on the chair in front of him, and so he would have that there. The top on these came up, and they would store their pencils and things in there. Here we've got a slate. And this was actually before paper. Kids would write on these. You could erase them.
They used those because they didn't have paper. Paper
Exactly.
was too expensive.
That's right.
And if you made a mistake on this, all you had to do was run your hand across there or wipe it on your pants and start over again.
Go right at it again. Yeah. We've got some early school books here. Here's a spelling book down here. And we've got some McDuffie readers.
Oh, yeah.
Many, many old books like that. In your writing surface, you had a little glass container here. We have chalk in it, but that's not correct. There would have been ink in there for your ink pen. And since you had a nice little bowl of ink there,
Oh, yeah.
and you happened to be sitting in your desk, and there was a little girl sitting in the desk in front of you.
With pigtails?
Pigtails or a ponytail.
Yeah.
You know, it... Them
Sure.
pigtails and ponytails once in a while got dipped into the ink, and the little boys ended up sitting in a corner. Not that I would ever do anything like that, but yeah, it did happen. We had talked a little bit about school here. Let's head on over here to what we have for an example of a one-room schoolhouse. This is the Kingsbury School. As it was duplicated, and this is the original school. Of course, it's been added on to, and they've added more buildings since then, but this was the original Kingsbury School. And you can see here, they've got some different type of desks here. They're not quite like the ones that we had, but all the grades, 1 through 12, were in one room, and that's what kind of made it unique. The school teachers at that time had to deal with every grade. There wasn't separate classes for the grades. It was all in one room. So they would spend part of the time with the kindergarten or first graders, teaching them how to ABCs, and they would have to go to the middle school and start talking about spelling and simple arithmetic. And by the time she got to her high school students, she would be teaching them more advanced math, more writing, and different subjects like that. And a lot of times the teachers would use the upper grade students to help the younger ones too. You know, if you had a younger brother or a younger sister, you would help them with their schoolwork too, and then go back and do your own.
I remember my great-grandmother. She was a school teacher, and I remember her talking about she was the only teacher in the country school. She lived with a local family, and every 2 months she would go and live with another family.
Wow.
And she had from 1 to 6 was the grades, and sometimes maybe 7 or 8, depending on how many kids. After that, you were done with school, or you moved into town, or you went someplace where there was a bigger school. But if you lived in the country, 6th grade, that was probably it. Maybe 7th or 8th if there were a couple extra students. But.
Yeah, really back then, schooling or education was kind of secondary. You know, you take the kids that lived on the farm, their number one priority was helping their parents on the farm. It took a lot of manpower, or child power, if you will, to run these farms back then, because they didn't have the money to have a hired help. They didn't have the tractors and all the equipment that they have today. Again, everything was done by hand, and the children sure had a lot of work to do to help out their parents. Another thing that we didn't talk about with this school, real early ones didn't have a bathroom in them.
Nothing indoors.
Nope. You had to go to the outhouse, and that was always at the back of the school lot. And today, that's where your archaeologists really want to find, to dig up the artifacts and relics from when the school was there. You had a bell up on top of the school that they would ring to say, hey, okay, time to come in from recess, or time in the morning for you to come into school. And that's the way they would run their school day. Again, no central heat. You had a fireplace or a wood-burning stove in there, and the children would be bringing in the stove wood to light up the stove and keep the schoolroom warm. If you happened to be sitting in the back of the schoolroom and the stove was up front, guess what? You were cold, you know. And if you were in the front row and they really stoked the stove up, you'd be pretty warm. So it wasn't really a happy medium in there. It wasn't easy. Life back then was not easy for anybody. It was a hard life.
The school my mother went to was west of Oxford. There were quite a few farm families, and each farmer was responsible for a month's worth of wood.
Wow, okay.
So when 1 month the wood was down, it was up to that farmer to bring in. Now I don't know if they all did that, but it was up to, like time my grandfather, he had to bring in a month's supply of wood. So he would go out in the wood lot, made sure it was there, and then drag it in by the horse. Then the next month it was another farmer. So
yeah, that's
everybody pitched in, everybody helped.
a real sense of community back then. Everybody would contribute to the school life. Yeah.
And my mother remembers the teacher living with them for several months. Then that was part of her pay, and then she did get paid, but then she, for another 2 months, went to the farm down the road and stayed with them for a while.
Wow. Do you see that happening today?
No, I don't.
Not
no,
even.
I don't. No,
Not
I don't.
even. Yeah, that's, again, that was life back then.
No.
So much different than today. I think if we take a look back in the other room here, we're going to find some sleds
Okay.
that kids use to amuse themselves in the wintertime, and a little bit different than the sleds they have today.
Sleds and cap guns were my favorite.
Oh, yeah. Here we go, Darryl. We got
Oh, yeah.
our two sleds here. This is the oldest sled that we have, older than the other one here. And as you can see, this one's made out of 3/4 inch lumber. Very heavy. These, the runners here are probably about 1 inch.
Like some kind of banding iron that they would have heated, and maybe a blacksmith would have pounded it
Yeah,
in.
this was made by a blacksmith, Mr. Cole.
1875.
There you go. Yeah, he would have heated the steel up, wrapped it around here, and that way it wouldn't wear out, and the steel would create less friction against the snow than the wood would. Wood, that's pretty good. And so it just glide better.
Oh, yeah.
It was awful heavy to pull back up the hill, I know that.
I'm sure that other than sliding on it for the kid, that probably was used to bring firewood into the house, because that is heavy duty.
Yeah.
Or from the barn, a couple bags of chicken feed or whatever would have been put on there and dragged. So it probably served a dual purpose.
Yeah, I mean, it's really well built, and as you say, it's very strong, sturdy, and it would carry quite a bit of weight, I'm sure.
The only problem I see, my sled had a wooden mechanism on here that you could turn and you could steer it.
Right, yep.
With that one, if you went straight, if there was a tree in the way,
Sorry
you're in
about
trouble.
that. Here's a little bit later one, and it's got some steel runners on it, made out of metal tubing, and it was all bolted together. So this would have been a lot later than this one. But again, that was what we had to play with when we were kids. And I think that will pretty much wrap up what we have this week, Darryl. I certainly want to thank you for coming in today.
My pleasure.
And hope to see you again.
Oh, yeah.
Canine Stray Rescue is Oxford's own local dog rescue. Each year they take in hundreds of dogs and bring them into suitable homes. A certified nonprofit organization, Canine Dog Rescue strives to give pound dogs a new leash on life. To donate, adopt, or even volunteer, call them at 248-628-0435 or go to their website, dogsaver.org, and click on the Canine Stray Rescue League link.
You're watching OCTV.